meditation, I took a journey spiritually. My eyes beheld a vision shone clearly in front of me. Well, in the vision I saw an old man slowly beating a drum, humming a melody that was strange to me. Then he called me and said, Sandra, come. He arose and he showed me a country, beautiful everywhere, a land of endless bounty and the riches beyond compare. There was enough for everybody, for all their material needs. But alas, when the old man showed me my people, they were all overpowered with greed. And the old man beat his drum. The old man beat his drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them of the wrath to come, and if you hear him, bye-bye, revelation time. This is revelation. This is revelation. I want them of the wrath. You're gonna get want them of the wrath to come. Leaders were fighting each other. They were tearing the people apart. Friends who used to live happy together, now hatred filling their hearts. Neighbors were cursing neighbors, whole villages in mayhem. I heard they were listening deceitful leaders who were preaching for doctrine to them. Look, compassion went out of the window. Deviousness reigned instead. Morality was low, 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 but the people were spiritually dead. But the old man beat his drum. The old man beat his drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them of the wrath. And if you hear, warn them of the wrath. Revelation, you know what he tell me? He said, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills, and everywhere. Oh, tell it on the mountain. The old man beat his drum. Were all in a quandary, no sense of direction. They lost all hope cause they just can't cope. They're already yet, but they're gone. They have no respect for their elders, no respect for themselves also. Their spirits were all in tatters and reading an all-time low. Then I hear them cussing the system, they're cussing the leaders too. But they were raping, stealing, shooting and looting, but they all had nothing else to do. The old man beat his drum. The old man beat his drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them of the road to come and warn them of the road to come. You're gonna get revelation time. This is revelation. This is revelation. Want them on the road to come. He said, talk to your spiritual leaders. Tell them get on their knees and pray to get rid of all these karmas that driving good spirits away. Then you tell them, talk to your fellow Calypsonians. Tell them stop the shame and disgrace. Encouraging people to get on and jump up and mash up the place. But behold, I saw the sunrise coming over the mountain range. The old man said that is a symbol of hope if your people get serious and change. But the old man beat his drum. The old man beat his drum. He said, take this melody, girl, go to your country, warn them of the road.
I know you guys feel that.
Oh, yes. Good evening to you, and welcome to Tuesday evening's Politics 101. Singing Sandra, Revelation Time. Warn them of the road to come. Wherever you're joining us from, please tell others we're on. We missed last night. I got caught in traffic. I ran away from traffic on one street, and the traffic was heavier in that street. These things happen. These things happen. Sorry to those of you who were expecting us last night, but here we are this evening. Revelation Time, singing Sandra Devines. The old man beat the drum, warning them of the road to come. That's what we do. Partly, we are warning our government in Guyana that, fix some things, get your governments right. Stop this thing of believing that you can represent one side of the ethnic divide, but govern in the interest of all. Stop believing that some or the other you will go in with a box of fried rice and $40,000 into African Guyanese community, and that will make them vote for you. We are warning them that, you're going down that road. You're going down the road of disaster. Stop. But the things with politicians is that they don't listen to that kind of thing. Certainly to those who are governing us. They are going down the path of dominance. And of course, the discussion is how to stop that. We'll talk with Dr. Henry Jeffrey tonight, as we do every fortnight, as they say, every 2 weeks. He's here to discuss some of these issues with us. So please share the link and share the live and let everyone know that we're on. We're still dealing with the aftermath of the incident involving Mr. Ivor Thom. Of course, that's not just about Thom, but it's about the bigger issue that we've been talking about on this program over and over again. Used to be, the government would tell us, show the evidence. You're saying that racism occurs, racial discrimination occurs. Show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. Well, my goodness, these days, almost every week, there is some scandal that has racial consequences or racial origins. The evidence is being, God, they say walk in mysterious ways with those of you who are God-fearing. And God get a way of, don't come, we just send. And So the vice president says, we're sorry, that's not who we are. But we are saying to you now for approximately 4 years, whether you believe it or not, that's who you have become. And so when we see that incident involving Ivor Tom, the rest of us are not saying we told you so. Because, an incident like that is too serious to treat in that way. But the fact of the matter is that we told you so. And some of us told you so because some of us took the time. Thanks to you, the ordinary people, thanks to you, the citizens of Guyana, we took the time to study some of these issues as scholars, as political activists. And so in many regards, we know what are likely to happen in societies that have gone the direction that our society has gone. And so the Thorn thing comes as no surprise to some of us. And we are not celebrating either because we would prefer them not to happen. But if you go down the road that this government is taking our country down, the Ivor Thorn moments are going to be very, very regular. In fact, can you imagine how many people go through what Ivor Thorn went through? Every day, every day, every day. The thing about what makes Ivor Thorn incident a clear and present danger is that the government got involved through one of its ministers. And that is the point that those of us who have studied this thing called race and racism, that's what we are saying. It starts at racial prejudice in the yard of the Edward Burroughs School. Mr. Tom, who has several identities, he's a male, he's of medium height, he spoke English, he's of African descent, he looks older, yet when he told two people in a parking lot that they shouldn't park there and they got irate, all of us get irate at things. That's not the problem. But their response was not to his height, his gender, his supposed class. I don't know how he was dressed, whether they thought he was poor, middle class, or working class. I don't know. But their immediate response was to his ethnic identity, his racial identity. And that's how you begin to measure. And what started out as racial prejudice escalated into racism because apparently they called people in power who then empowered them, who gave the seal to what they removed from prejudice plus power equal racism. And then a big boy, some will say the number one man in the government, some will say the number two man in the government, intervened. But his very intervention to say this is not who we are, in a sense, acknowledges. And then he used the power of state to apparently apologize to Tom and so on. What's happening here is the thing is operating, like I said, at two levels. The level of prejudice, which apparently has become a problem in our society. There There are always those kinds of things. I mean, people call you nigger, coolie this, black man this. Those things are there. But they're now happening within a larger context, a context of contestation, not just for political power, but contestation for economic power, or a response to the unequal and inequitable distribution of economic power. So when you put racial prejudice against the background of the contestation for absolute power, dangerous brew. For me, that's what the Tom thing is telling us. One way we can deal with that, because we're not going to, I'm sure the day after that, somebody tells somebody don't park there or don't walk there, and they cuss them with a black so and so. So you ain't going to stop that. But you've got to put things in place to minimize that, because you're seeing where the society. In fact, you didn't have to wait for Tom incident to tell you that's the road we gone down. Good evening. I think we are ready. We're a little bit slow tonight, but I think we're ready. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Good evening, David. And thank you for that nice analysis of Mr. Tom.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. When a professor said thanks for a nice analysis, you have to perk up, because professors are very serious with their analysis. So, okay, so this Tom incident, I kind of tried in my way to put it there in its larger context. But tell me, from your standpoint, what is it that jumped out at you?
David, racism is pervasive in Guyana. I mean, racism, and particularly in the PPP. You see, during the 30 years that the PNC ruled, the PPP had nothing. It's only a few things it had to keep people going. PNC racism, PNC equal African racism, rig election, and Burnham dictatorship. It's about those three things they could put together. They ain't got nothing else. And the people you see driving that car and the thing, they grew up in a cultural context of just that. They have been socialized to believe that, and all the other negativities that follow. Because once you start looking at the people negatively, you can find a whole lot of other things to say about them, and you can conceive the world in a way that they are more negative perhaps than they could ever possibly be. So that's a norm. And I understand why the vice president got involved, because now you are African votes. But the vice president was a man charged for doing the same thing, but kicked down the door bandit, remember?
Yes.
And therefore now he wants African votes. He goes and he says, hey man, you're a terrible chap. How are you going to do this? You don't know we need African votes. Just God, story there. This, it's not going to go away like that. You can't have a structure in which one ethnic party, because that's what it is. It's one ethnic party will rule over everybody else. And essentially, That ethnic party for 30, more than 30 years, that was 30 PN, must be 50 years, being essentially telling its people that PNC, the party the Africans belong to, is racist, and therefore if you vote for the PNC, you are racist, and don't expect what Ramson did or what the other man do to exist. It is the context. You have to change the context. You can't, you have to allow people to run their own situation, and they don't want that. They tell us they got new politics. The new politics will get rid of local government and go to the people themselves. That's how far they got. No, because they want African vote and they want to throw out some dollars. But I would have thought that liberal democratic politics says the government must only do what cannot be done well or better at the local levels. Now, I heard the president saying, and they're writing it up as a new form of democracy, where they go to a local authority, destroy local organizations, and do all of that. Now, I'm saying to you, this isn't going to go away. I can't. These things, they've been so ingrained. They have so ingrained that they are not going to go away. When I heard what happened to Mr. Thorne, I said, well, I mean, it's happening. It didn't happen the other day when they said somebody spit on somebody. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? It's the structure has to change. The entire system has to change. You cannot just think you're going to change what you have been teaching people for 50 years. Look what, and the PPP is still doing it. Look what happened at Manipur Market. When the Henry Boys and the March and so on, they got thousands of troops, allow some renegades to run into their place. How can that possibly be? And affect that? No, it's all part of racism, racial mobilization. I had my article last week. So that is the operational procedure of the PPP. Racial mobilization.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore you're mobilizing people racially. You cannot expect them, particularly ordinary people for the most part, to be able to differentiate about when you want African vote. This is what Guyana is. It is. And therefore, you have to have systems in place to deal with that. It's as simple as that. And, I'm pleased that Mr. Tom went back to his job. Indeed, the old question, these things are very murky. Why is Mr. Jagjo calling Tom to go back to work in the first place? Orphan isn't there, and if he's not even there, a phone call to him where he says, "Boss, we're in trouble, call him out." But the party wants to demonstrate is the party in control.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no good reason for you to say anything to Tommy. He could have called Ramson. I said, "Boss, I hear this thing. If it's nonsense, call him and apologize and let him go back to work." Why you call the man and then have to berate Ramson? Because you want to show the party is good. For all you know, the party might be bad because there are people who are saying, must they set up Ramson for the other thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So these things, and I don't think, David, to be truthful, I don't think the latter is true, and I've argued that against my friend. But I actually believe that the people that are running this country have never lived in a democracy. They don't know what it means. They live under Burnham autocracy. They live for a couple of days under Cherry Jagger and whatsoever he was trying there, because I think Cherry Jagger was smarter, man. But like Boredom, remember in 1976, I can tell you a story about that, but I'm on bad one now because then I was get carried away with the story. But in around 1976, when Burnham said he was the PNC is a Marxist-Leninist party. It's 1976, I think, January or something. Burnham started a process of talking to Cherry Jagger. Now, what, 1985? I'll him talk about 1985.
85, but we go back to 76 after the declaration of
Burnham
the
started talking to Cherry Jagger. And, well, he started doing a whole lot of other things. And in a sense, the 1980 Constitution people talk about more or less represented the governance structure that Cherry Jagger was saying he would like.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Let me tell you something.
Yes.
I just say, I am not sure that Forbes Burnham has ever come up with an original idea, but Boss, he can find them.
Hold your thought, because I just want to bring in the view of another player. I remember Quiana putting in my hand at some point, because we were arguing in the WPA over the 1980 Constitution, and Jagan was telling us nothing wrong with the Constitution. It's Burnham and the PNC who are bad. The 1980 Constitution is a good Constitution. Quiana put in my hand, and I suppose he must have put in some of the younger activists' hand, and I have it somewhere here in a file, a copy of the PPP's proposal to the Constitutional Commission as we was coming into independence. They had to go to England and so on. And the PPP put forward the proposal. And Quiana tell me, read that proposal. When I read the PPP, 1962 proposal to the British independent constitution, Dr. Jeffrey, the thing was almost identical to Burnham 1980 constitution, but it went even further in some of the powers and so on that were given to the president and the executive. I remember they're tailoring the thing off of the Soviets and the communist world. So you are quite correct. If you go back to their 1962-63 proposal, the independence proposal, the constitution is identical to the 1980 constitution and even went further in terms of its autocratic forms. Anyhow,
yes.
Go ahead.
No. And you see, Burnham, that 1980 constitution was crafted in terms of what Cherry Jagger wanted. He even wanted it when he come back and asked for shared governance. I don't know this, but after I read the two things and I saw how 1976 went, that I was involved in for another day. But I said this here. But Burnham also read what's happening in Europe, in Eastern Europe. When the Polish and all that, and Kissinger, and the kind of milieu that was existing there, showing clearly that the Soviet mightn't survive. So Burnham know that he depended on Jagan also against the thing. Jagan was a stopgap for America against, but if the Soviet finish, they're gone. So it was time to change track, and that. So all those things came in to provide what is in the 1980 Constitution. But people run around, they just watch things and says, oh, it's a thing, Constitution, it's all that. Yes, was all that. Burnham was an autocrat. There's no question. I've never doubted that. But I've also said that Jagan is responsible for Burnham because he was taking the whole Caribbean into communism. And I wasn't going to know communism with him. And myself and him, we had this discussion all our lives. Yes, when communism fell, I met him and I said, your time come. And he said, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, all the time I know you were telling me I'm finished. I know you're telling me. I tell you, you see what happened? Berlin Wall fall. You are irrelevant. He says, come to me house, yeah. So,
yes, we are talking about the I for Tom issue,
yes,
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here. Dr. Henry Jeffrey reminded us that Jack Dio, who apparently tried to give the impression that he's above the free, that he himself was brought before the court on a private charge by Christopher Ram for racism. And this picture was that I'd gone to Wim Magistrate Court where Mr. Jack Dio was passed through. He was there in court, and I was there with Chris Ram. And a few of us went to give Chris Ram solidarity. And when I came out of court, this gentleman said he was in 51 Leeds, and he saw on social media that I was at the court, and he wanted to meet me, and he came, and somebody took this picture of us. Those of you who are in the audience and who are in particular Kedaki's audience in the morning will know Flash Gordon. That is the famous Flash Gordon. Long before we had our social media programs and he became a fixture, he came down to Wim and we took that picture. But that picture was taken in the yard of the Wim Magistrate Court. I'd gone there to give solidarity to Christopher Ram, who had brought a charge of racism against Jack Dio. And it was quite a sight to see Jack Dio there in his handcuffs and so on, and in the docks. But Jeffrey's making the point that here is the man appearing to us now as though somewhere the other is above the people. He's very much part of the problem, the socializing. You know, in African soldiers are going to come kick down your door, chase Grange, and then when they come in your community. And now the people them in the schoolyard there and Ramson are basically doing what he in a sense instruct them to do, and over a time, and he may be looking for votes now according to Jeffrey, but the fact of the matter, you have socialized people that way. Flash Gordon, if you're in the audience, remember that photograph. So Dr. Jeffrey, the Thorm issue says more and more why we cannot continue down this road, because if these incidents keep multiplying as they've been doing, at some point the society is going to respond, or the part of the society that feels aggrieved is going to respond perhaps in ways that are not directed by politicians. Huh?
Yes, of course. The point I was trying to make is that the PPP has no credibility to try to rule black people. It's an ethnic party. It got more than 90% of his vote from ethnic people. It has mobilized over 50 years on notions of ethnicity and against black people, a black party. Even if not black people, it translates into that you're voting for black party. They have no credibility to want to rule black people. And in any case, they can make a similar story. They will say, oh, y'all, PNC and all that. Fine. I'm willing to live with that. What I am saying to you, that the nature of governance has to change. The nature of government can't be that you're going to now say that local government is irrelevant. I go in and meet the people myself. I mean, you people live in their community, and that's why I know Alexander, and I know he did work in local government, and he has always been strong that local authorities should should be in existence. We need equitable governance, not this thing with majority rule foolishness. We need equitable governance in Guyana. If you don't have it, you're going nowhere. You can have a majority. Yeah, a majority. You know that's what get Jagan in trouble. Majority rule.
Mm-hmm.
Jagan go and send, he was a young man, all right, he make a mistake because if he and Janet were communists, they can't write letters and send it to Communist International. The minute they sent that letter, Communist International, the US and all them got it. And the PPP, then the British knew you can't get rid of, the West knew that you ain't gonna get rid of Jagan because people voted ethnically. And therefore there had to be another way to deal with it. Because you cannot have a situation in which what you are trying to fight for, trying to destroy the very thing you are saying you want to fight for. Communism, as we know it at that point and still is a dictatorial system. It's been there. And Jagan, well, as I said, me and Jagan had a discourse all his life. But what I did not know is that he sent a letter. I said, you're a communist. I'll tell him all my life. And I said, he went to the governor, not the governor, the secretary of Guyana. And the man said to him quite clearly, he says, but look at this. Burnham got 5,000 people for a seat in Georgetown. I got 13,000 in Barbies. That is unequitable. But this is what it is. What is this? He said, this is only trying to get rid of the PVP. The man shake, he said, yes, that's what we want. Because you can't use democracy to get rid of democracy.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about the change there from first past the post to proportional representation.
Yes, and all of that comes in. They have been rigging election against Jagan for the longest while Burnham and start rigging election about. But they don't like talk about it. Because if you start saying that, you gotta say why. Why your friends were rigging election against you then? They were rigging election against Jagan long. The truth is, Jagan was a communist. He wrote a foolish, that's his ideology, but he wrote a letter. He's a young man. He said what? Youthful exuberance. That is how he put it. He wrote a letter to the communist world. The CIA he got it and scared to the American. Story done about Jagan. To this day, they can't accept it. They're socializing this. All they can think is, oh, Burnham rig election. They can't see Burnham save them from communism. Save them. Burnham was a little communist himself, and when he started moving, what the Americans did to deal with him in the same ways.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here is interpretation of the movement of Guyanese history, and we are seeing a lot of that movement today. Jeffrey, 2 weeks ago in your column, you had a very tantalizing title of your column, Suriname graduated, Guyana failed. Suriname graduated, Guyana failed. Talk to us.
Well, essentially, the democracy is considered maybe the most comprehensive. You teach comprehensive democratic index in the world, largely because they don't only take what elections, they take all the qualities of the elections process. So they have started from liberal democracy. That means you have all the qualities, open government, nice local government processes, and all of that. And you have a proper election, not only normal election, but in terms of elections financing, they go into the whole lot. They got thousands or of indices that they use to determine who is a liberal democracy. In the Caribbean, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, because those are the ones there that I've seen, are considered liberal democracy minus. I mean, they minus some of the values of liberal democracy. So they are democracy. You can't just say, we are democracy because we hold election. That's nonsense. That is old term. Indeed, you can be a democracy and be very terrible and bad country. You can get people voting for Hitler and then vote for Hitler. Hitler win an election. Hitler won an election here, and it is said he killed 6 million Jews. So you can win elections and be maybe the world a very bad government. So unless you have the moral values of democracy, you're not. And essentially, the VD has this process going on and on. And in 2024, Suriname became a liberal democracy minus like the rest of the Caribbean. Guyana remained an electoral democracy, but it changed from minus. I mean, electoral democracy without even some of the features of why electoral democracy should have. And now then gray zone. The gray zone means that we are now in this thing that this thing can be a dictatorship for all we know. Because we can't call it minus now, it's gone its way. And that's what Guyana is. It is not, when people talk about Guyana being autocratic and all of that, well, it's an electoral democracy minus in a gray zone. The gray zone is like if it's an autocracy. And that is perhaps with the best system. Anybody can go and check it. It's there. It's perhaps the best, the most comprehensive, certainly, system. Trying to walk away from all these people having election. Maduro had elections. Russia has election. China has election. Nobody considers them democracies in that sense. So, well, except when
what is the differentiation between Guyana and Suriname? Why Suriname has gone ahead of Guyana? What Suriname did and what Guyana didn't do?
Well, for instance, one thing. In Guyana, you got 15 days to do some budget. You put the budget in terms in the thing and it come out just the same. For the most part, that's what happened. In Suriname, you got to spend 3 months. Suriname constitution says budget must be there for 3 months in keeping with international best practices. And every civil society and everybody must be involved in what is going on in those 3 months. If ministers must answer questions, and if they don't answer questions, it goes back unfinished when they answer the question and all that sort of thing. Not here, you answer any old question any old way in the parliament and it's passing. So, I mean, Suriname, the president, to be president, you gotta get 2/3 majority in parliament.
Mm-hmm.
That means no president can just be president. And by the way, Suriname, the population, the Indian population is the highest with 27%. But that is about it. The others split up in all sorts of things. So who is the vice president? What is his name? Brunswick. Who is African? I think he's one of the, what we call Juka, no?
Right.
Yeah. So effectively, yeah, what you have is a plurality kind of government, because remember, Suriname is a real plural society.
Yeah.
Right? It has, as I said, the only group with as much as 20, but you got Javanese, you got all sort of people, you know, and therefore it's a plural society. To win the presidency, you got to get 2/3 majority in parliament. In Guyana, you're going to get 1 seat majority.
In fact, as
you don't even
as
have
happened
that.
in 2011, you didn't even have that. You won the presidency and you were able to.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's foolishness. Therefore, the system need to adapt to you. And Guyana is worse than Suriname in terms of the difficulties of government because two parties got 40%. You see, ethnicity, I'm not talking about Indian and so on. They get about 40%. And if you got 40% out there, you can, as Arthur Lewis said, you can't keep 40% of people not making decisions for themselves. Or you're run into trouble. And as Orr says, essentially, if you give me the same information, I can come up with a different story to show about you. So when you go to election, what are you doing? The system is wrong. The system is terrible for a multi-ethnic, bi-communal society. We are more like Ireland than on Suriname.
Yeah. Your column this week, Vincent Alexander and Constitutional Reform. And for you in the audience, you can get Dr. Jeffrey's columns, The Village Voice. They're published in The Village Voice every Sunday, so you can get his column there called Future Notes. Henry, your column this week, Vincent Alexander and Constitutional Reform, and it came from a forum sponsored by the Burnham Foundation, led by Vincent Alexander. And I must say that forum, the Red House was invited, meaning the PPP was invited. According to Vincent Alexander, they gave him their word that they would participate in the event. And then they later sent a written memo to Alexander saying that they would not participate. So they gave an oral promise to participate, and then maybe they considered, or it went to Jack Dio and the higher ups, I don't know, but they then wrote Alexander saying they will not participate. So I just wanted, and the reform that the forum was organized by the Burnham Foundation. No. Can you imagine what it could do for our country if the Burnham Foundation is putting on an event on an issue that is of national importance, and that the PPP turns up to that event? Just the optics of it. Can you all imagine what it would do for race relations in our country? The PPP, which is talking about one Guyana, could not even get that. They could not get that to say, if we go with all that we are saying about one Guyana, if we were to show up at an event sponsored by the Burnham Foundation, where you have people from the PNC, people from the PPP going to be there, Jeffrey's going to be there, it's an opportunity to show this country that we are really for one Guyana. No, the PPP didn't show up. Anyhow, Jeffrey was there, and his column this week, Vincent Alexander and Constitutional Reform, was written against the backdrop of that forum. Over to you, Mr. Jeffrey.
Well, you see, that's a nice piece of analysis of the ideal context,
Yes.
But remember, Jeffrey is there, Alexander is there, the PNC is there, not just to sit there. It's to listen what the PPP would say. And that is the PPP don't want. This is not just they're gonna be there. Yeah. They don't care much about if I there or not. For the obvious reason that I spoke on Shade Governor some time ago in the PPP. I think is that the same place or I think a church in Ting Street. But I'm saying to you that no. Remember, you are at a point of time where everybody is saying to the PPP, change the system. Everybody, the United States, everybody is saying the system needs changing. The British I think it was 2000, even the same Greg, must be Greg Quinn, was to
Quinn,
pay
yes.
for some people to go Trotman and all them to go and see out Northern Ireland, and they're saying change the system. This system is not the right system for you. Now, the people don't want to come to Northern Ireland because effectively the game is stacked against them in real terms. They are the ones that are preferring to be an autocratic government. There can't be a democracy if they don't change the system. They can't. It's impossible. It's a choice they have. Democracy, a consortium, shared governance, whatsoever, all over our autocracy. So they prefer to be an autocracy. But they don't want to be a racial autocracy. They don't. Because that means that the whole world will turn against them. Because largely the world, a whole lot of countries are autocratic governments, but a whole lot of countries aren't racist and doing racial things. And they will never be able to enter Africa if that is properly sent about. The truth is, that is their problem. They're not going to have to come there and just sit down. They have to come there and tell us what they want, what they intend to do, and they certainly did not intend, do not intend to want the system change. Well, they certainly don't want electoralists change. We know that as a point of fact. Although the Europeans say should change, although the CARICOM group, counting group, said that it should change. They don't want to change. But all these things should change before any election for a start. But they can't want to change because they want to dominate. You see, if there is you can't lose. The great problem here is the whole question, is the winner takes all. And therefore everybody trying to just win. They're not thinking about Guyana. Why you got to win to run Guyana? Look at Switzerland. Look at Denmark. It's the nature of your situation. Look at Northern Ireland now. If you have a problem, yes, we get a log jam and, well, keep the problem, but that don't stop the government from going on. That problem, as I said in my article for a couple of weeks, I'm certain Ravi Dev would have loved to be in a position when the government, the FC government, did dismiss 7,000 Indians. All you have to do is stand up and say, well, no, we don't accept. There's all the people that have to say, we don't accept that. And 70,000 Indians would not have been sacked. They would have had to come up with some other thing, but that process would not have gone through. But the PPP, I don't even think about the Indians. I mean, they are mobilized in that way, but you have to do things in a fashion that allows, as Sarata said, ethnic groups, the major ethnic groups, to sit at the table. If you don't want, my piece, maybe for 2 weeks, but I have in it, I say something that the Amerindians, as a matter of fact, should have a veto. Amerindian, first of all, I believe, should have the 11% of the population, but make things even, I said, 11 to 15% of the people in parliament. Either party, don't matter. When they make their own party, which I think they should also, but either party. And they should have 15% of it. And if that 15% come together as a group and make, and 50%, 51% of them say, remember they are in different parties, and if 51% of them come together and say, we don't think this is right for Amerindians, that should veto that thing, what they Belgium call delay it for 3 months and send it back.
Veto.
Yes. Yeah, pocket veto. I think America, well, the pocket veto works. But the point is,
yes.
send it back.
The Americans
should have that right. So said, no, we're not. They are 10% of the 11%, 10% of the population. They should be 15% of all the electoral lists, at least in parliament. And if 50% of them come together, that means they got to come from different parties. And said, no, this is Amerindian thing. You should at least be able to delay that crap and don't send it forward. They need to. Yeah, people are taking advantage of Amerindian because they can buy out the leaders. And one time you had, what's his name? Hardy. Janet used to call him Hardly. Hardy, he gone. Now you are Schumann, he gone. And that's what people are doing to them. And it's unfair. It's unfair.
Very interesting proposal there. Of course, in America, they call it a pocket veto, where the opposition can hold a bill on their desk and don't bring it to even committee. And it's called pocket veto, of course.
The president.
Yes, the president, sorry. The president can hold a bill on his desk and don't exercise the veto in a sense, vetoing it by holding it there. And in England, the House of Lords has a 6-month suspensory veto. A bill goes there from the House of Commons. The House of Lords can hold on to it for 6 months. After 6 months, then the House of Commons can act, but
except the money bill. I think it's
except the money bill. Except the money bill. So the model there of at least having a veto at certain time is there.
Yes.
And the Swiss, in their presidential system, where they have co-presidents, each president has a veto. So sometimes they tell us, tell us where this thing work. Power sharing, shared governments can work. And I remember Quayana writing something saying, how do you know it can work if you never work it? Something he wrote called Common Sense about power sharing. He said, how do you know it can work if you never work it? Right? And, the fact of the matter is the winner-take-all system in a lot of societies that look like us, either plural societies or bi-communal societies, have played around with one aspect of power sharing or the other. Even in places as extreme as Kenya, when they had their political violence after the election about 15 years ago, they went into a power sharing arrangement where the leaders of the two parties share power, one president, one prime minister, and so on. Zimbabwe, under the much hated and maligned
South Africa.
Mugabe, South Africa, where Mandela set aside a certain number of seats for the apartheid party. Today, the remnants of the apartheid party are in power with the ANC. So the point we're making is that this system doesn't fall from the sides of the sky. People have been talking about it and putting into operation elements of it, even if it's not the entire thing. And the PPP stands alone in Guyana, being against any form of power sharing.
But is that true, David? What you hear from the PNC?
Well, they dance around with it. They dance around.
They're just dancing around. They had the opportunity. So it's they're dancing around. But it's these people being socialized in a given way. Yeah. And that's what we make. All these people are autocrats in their mind. They socialize. You gotta live in America for 100 years, so you know what's going on and how things different. America is a power sharing arrangement. You take look. How is it that Trump can get less votes than Hillary Clinton and still win the election? Please tell me, how is it California got 2 senators and Rhode Island, two people got 2 senators? No, because democracy is not about what So what I call pure majority rule, it's about the kind of majority rule that's acceptable to all of us.
To all of us. Yes. All
You
those
know,
things.
it's you got to have it constitutionally properly put. This thing about majority, this is again PPP propaganda. These people, they're supposed to have woken up with, and to an extent, our PNC kind of African people are bought also. Because nobody else have ever put a different process because they never had an interest in putting a
Yeah.
different game.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting when we were having these discussions in the early 2000s in the newspapers and otherwise. I remember a PNC man at that time. I'm trying to remember his name. He's married to John Carter's daughter. He was ambassador to the United Kingdom under the coalition government. But Hoyt was the stumbling block. And I remember him writing me and telling me, Hoyt is coming around, but you have to give him some time because he's so socialized in the Westminster system
Yes.
that just
Yeah.
to get that passing
Yes.
was very difficult. And
Yes.
but eventually, in 2002, Hoyt came around.
Yes.
You know, he had said that power sharing is protean. I remember that so well, right? But he came around in 2002 and said power sharing is a system whose time has come. Unfortunately, died 3 years, three
Yeah.
months. He came out for it in August and he died in December. And of course, well, you would know what followed there with Corbyn and the
Yeah.
PPP
Yeah.
because you were part of it. But that is the issues that the PNC itself, the present PNC is not as forthcoming as the PNC under Hoyt slash Corbyn. Somebody's asking here, Dr. Jeffrey. The person said, Jeffrey, blame it on Burnham for giving us that stupid constitution. Please do. What? But you were
I'm not
around the
blaming
PNC.
Burnham for nothing.
No, he's telling you must blame him. He's not saying you are blaming him. He's saying you must blame him for giving us that stupid constitution, right? And so I'm asking you, you were around the PNC at that time. And as you said just now, that Jagan wanted a lot that went into the constitution. But what was Burnham thinking behind that constitution?
You know, I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
Shahab, I told you this, I said this on this program before again. I mean, I think Shahab, and who wrote the constitution?
Shahabuddin.
Shahabuddin was the man writing up and saying this constitution. Indeed, Doctor, he makes a very scathing remarks about other people. Oh, if it wasn't for Shahab, we must never get a constitution. And there's another story. And one day I'm going into Sophia. I was going to the place there to meet somebody and I heard somebody say Henry, and I turned around with Sharp. So I turned around and here Sharp says, why are you telling the leader all this nonsense? I said, what? He said, yeah, you and all of y'all in the Mac David and all of you, they're telling him about shit, governance and all of these things. And he said, the Americans going to overthrow it. The Americans, they tried to overthrow it at the end of the day. He said the Americans would overthrow us. The truth of the matter is, as I said just now, Burnham was essential for the Americans. Now, somebody, if it wasn't Burnham, there'd be another Burnham. There'll never be Jagan. You can take it from me. They would have never been Jagan. They will never allow Jagan to come here with no communism to bring the whole Guyana and the whole Caribbean. So it was never going to be Jagan. They would have found another Burnham, one way or another. This is one place. If it wasn't Burnham, it was going to be another Burnham. So effectively, but as I said, Burnham too was like a Tito White. I think it's Guyana called a Tito White communist. You understand? So Burnham wanted this communism, and that And if you know that you had to get the two parties together. So when in 1976 and 77, Jagan put up this process about what he wants. That was Jagan. You say it happened since the Constitution time, but he came up with it again in December. Burnham then recognizing too that Soviet on a roll, it's not going to last because Brzezinski and Carter on the back, and they got all sorts of what you call it Genevas, and then the rebel movement in Poland start against them and so on. And so the Ghana Constitution was fit for Chedi Jagan to come on board.
Critical support.
And he did give critical support.
That's right.
He was going to come as God as prime minister.
Yes.
And he himself said that he don't have to win the election to be prime minister. Even to object to Burnham being prime minister. Ralph wrote it the other day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a bad
he wouldn't object to Burnham being the president. He was prepared to serve as prime minister.
To Burnham being president. So effectively, Burnham Constitution was intended to be a shared governance constitution.
Got you.
You understand me? And that's why when you came to office, I thought, no, truly, when you came to office, I thought, well, first of all, long before, since 2011, I said only supporting the PNC because at that time they went with the AFC because they said they were going to have shared government. So since 2011, I made it quite clear when they come, I say you need the AFC. They did get the AFC. They come together. So at least chaps. But I have never seen such a disaster. Forever. Two places, the error was so clear. All right. Even if you don't want the PPP, and I thought I was wrong, even if in Sonari or foreign minister who's hardly ever political, Sana, after he wrote a thing saying, if Ranger believe he can go and pick up two parties somewhere and become a kind of shade governance, I mean, and he was right. So the idea was, I'm saying, all right, the PPP should be in this. You should offer everything to the PPP, that thing, and share this thing properly. But you, instead of that, you know what you do? You had an opportunity with Moses and the AFC. Instead of you saying, you signed some accord saying, how Moses is going to think the cabinet? Who cares who chair cabinet? Jagan used to have all of us chairing cabinet. If Moses want to chair cabinet, let them chair the cabinet. Instead of that, the PNC start running around quarreling about how many seats the AFC got and they don't really want the AFC. I said, these are my people. They're not even trying to use that opportunity with Moses to wrench vote from the PPP. And, so it's not a bad, I don't consider it a bad constitution in the context for what it was. The constitution is quite good in the context of what Burnham was trying to do.
What Burnham was trying to do, of course, when the coalition came to government, in the manifesto, I have to say that we in the WPA were quite instrumental in ensuring that a promise of shared governance was a part of the manifesto. It was one of our designs. And once the coalition got into power, Granger did reach out to the PPP. He put Moses Nagamut in charge. The PPP said, no game with Moses in charge. And the coalition left it at that.
And that's why they put Moses, because they wanted to be left at that. How you the Moses is anatomy to the PPP. You want to put him to chair the very thing that you. I mean, this is so terrible. I mean, that's nonsense. You don't want it to go anywhere. That's where you put Moses. You got 100 other people you could have put. It is quite clear that there was no intention for it to go anywhere. If you can put Moses, the people you are not for Moses just left them and all that sort of confusion. And now you put in Moses to change them. I mean, this is nonsensical. It's either you're foolish or something wrong. And that was it. So I have no, but that was the minute I saw that, I said it's nonsensical. I don't want it. You can't put Moses. The minute you put Moses, you don't want it. Story done. Because the PPP want to go have nothing to do with Moses, and rightly so in my view too. Because how you can do this, like humiliation, and they're not going to stand for it.
And of course, we are on the eve of another election, and the issue has come up again. The issue of something to do with shared governance. And the PPP is state. I remember, and I don't like to drop names and so on, but I met one of the most powerful PPP leaders in this present government. I met him at the same CPL cricket, and he stopped and chatted with me. I don't like to, because he's alive, and I don't like to throw names, but we stopped and chatted for a while. So I said, man, are you going to come on board with shared governance? And he said, David, we had chance, and let me give the PNC a chance to see what them do. No shared governance. So I mean, I'm saying that to say, and this was told to me by one of the most powerful. I'm not calling his name only because I don't like to do those things and say what people tell me and so on and so forth. But you all can read through the lines. He is one of the most powerful. So it was clear that the PPP didn't want no shared governance. And as you, I think, quite rightly surmise here, the PNC didn't want it either, or the coalition didn't want it either. And so we were left there. As we move into this next election, are things going to change?
I think so. I think there's a good opportunity for things to change because the international dynamics of change. Essentially, this world, regards Trump win, Trump lose. That's what Guyana is not acting. Guyana and countries like Guyana, the Americans have a good bipartisan act on it for a start. So Trump win or Trump win, they've been going on for the longest while and so on. But outside of that, the world is now divided, and the struggle going on always be between democracy and autocracy. You can't have a PPP autocracy here and fighting a Venezuela autocracy over there. And the PPP autocracy here is getting worse and worse. The government is getting worse. As I said, they're gone in some gray zone. The next 1 foot is in an autocracy. So how are you going to be fighting Maduro and then fight this? The only way out of this is some form of a shared authority in government. And the PPP is under severe pressure to do just that. Can't fight it any other way. They don't want no Singapore. Singapore is not a democracy. Singapore is an autocracy. The difference with Singapore is that the Chinese are 70%. The Chinese got all this majority and so on, and they've been running that country since 1965. Those are always talk nonsense. So, look, Singapore. Well, the Singaporeans have been holding down all the other groups since 1965. It's one family been running that country. And if that can happen, well, I suppose you will have growth and development and do what you like.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, as usual, always stimulating discussion. We've been talking about governance tonight, as we do whenever Dr. Jeffrey's here. Whatever the issue, we get back to governance because we feel that is at the center of our enormous challenges as we go forward. Anthony Brown is saying, I would not support shared governance because it's a way to protect corrupt politicians who should be held accountable. And this is part of the problem is that, within the context. Yes, go ahead.
How we going to protect? Let him give you a system that's going to hold politicians accountable.
Yeah, I know. It's always it's quite a struggle.
You don't want shared governance? Give a system that will hold them accountable in the present context without shared governance.
Yeah.
It's always good to say you don't want. Just what you want.
It is quite a struggle, with the base of the opposition, African Guyanese, to sell them at this juncture the whole thing about sharing government with people who are oppressing them now. And I think that is the hurdle that we have to get past. But I mean, all the theorists of shared governance have said in the final analysis, it's an elite arrangement. And that if the leaders say we're going down that road, the followers will fall in line. But I mean, there are real issues that are raised there. I see it all the time. I get rebuked all the time because I'm a power sharer. Although if you listen to the PPP, they wouldn't, you would believe that I want African dominance, but as you said, you're optimistic that as we move towards the next election, we could see some movement on this front. Dr. Jeffrey, thank you again for coming through.
Thank you again, David, and thank you to your audience for having me. Thank you.
And we'll see Dr. Jeffrey in 2 weeks' time. Anthony saying in shared governance, the corrupt politicians are going to be the first ones in the door to hold position that gives them immunity. Your point, Anthony, is worth discussion. And I think the more we discuss this issue, the more I think it will become a more attractive alternative to what we have now. But I do sense the difficulty here, sense the hesitancy here to conceive of your leaders sharing power with people who are really holding a sledgehammer to the African Guyanese community. And so this is an ongoing discussion that we have to have. And the leaders, the political leaders have to come to the table on it and pronounce on it. I know it is very difficult to sell this proposition to African Guyanese as it is now. But we will continue to have that discussion and to see where we go. Thank you. Thanks to you all for coming through tonight. And of course, tomorrow night, I will be here. Tomorrow night is, I have Eric Phillips and others on tomorrow night, Wednesday night. And so I'll see you all tomorrow night. And for those of you on the Boxunan morning time, I'll be there bright and early tomorrow morning. Thank you.